Good morning, everyone. My name is Riyasp, and today I'm welcome to my discussion on the urban edge. Within the confines of Auckland's waterfront, I'm exploring ways to connect Auckland City back to its prime waterfront edge. The area I'm focusing on is the edge condition between Auckland City and the ports of Auckland. While ports currently reside on prime waterfront estate, they restrict physical public access to the water. The significance of waterfront recreation is key to Auckland's maritime identity, and therefore the edge interface is an area of concern for future development. A quick overview from the previous workshops. Workshop 1 looked at commencing design literature search and identifying your research within a particular theoretical field. Workshop 2 looked into developing a design methodology and commencing site exploration and design development. Workshop 3 was refining your design, and this presentation scope will articulate a design proposal driven by research and design methodology. So the issue I'm interested in is ports expansion around the world has led to increased development at the hinterland and security measures on the periphery, causing a lack of city-port connectivity. For most port cities, it is a zone of conflict. The inability for most coastal cities to absorb rapidly expanding port developments and population growth puts significant pressure on the waterfront edge and restricts growth possibilities for economic development. On a global scale, greater planning measures and sustainable paradigms aim to resolve these critical issues and future locations of ports within port cities. I looked into the port city interface model, which was introduced by Hayth in 1982 and then later conceptualized by Brian Hoyle into 6 stages. The model illustrates the progression and transformation of port and its city between the 19th and the 20th century. We are currently in the 6th phase of development, which is this one, which is revitalization of our waterfronts and renewal of city and port links. The model on the right is illustrating the governance processes of Port City Interface Zone, also known as a zone of conflict. Sustainable agendas are challenging port authorities to use port assets more efficiently and productively. However, the current sustainability framework is being seen as separate entities of ecology, economy, and society, and there needs to be a more holistic approach to frame a network. These are some port cities which highlight port city connections, sustainable development, increased biodiversity, and physical resiliency on the water's edge. A common denominator in these precedents is port growth which is influenced by form and function from one place to another. These case studies are some of the successful port cities that show the integration of social, economic, and ecological benefits on the water's edge. A number of these key design strategies highlighted here can be applied on Auckland's waterfront at a different scale. This brings me to my question of how can port cities achieve strategic integration of urban and port-related activities to enhance future livability on waterfronts. The site of interest is Ports of Auckland, which they currently reside on 76 hectares of land and are roughly 1.5 kilometers long. The total handling capacity is 968,741 20-feet containers annually, and the contribution towards tourism is 100 cruise ship trips annually and rising each year. They also contribute to 22% of Auckland's economy, equaling 187,000 jobs, projected to rise $42 billion, equaling 336,000 jobs. So while Ports of Auckland are a valuable economic asset to its host city, they do reside at a zone of contention, surrounded by commercial, business, entertainment, and residential development, as well as recreational maritime use. So during my first site visit, I came across some degraded site areas with sparse permeability, with eroded wharf infrastructure leaching into the harbour. The contaminants were being washed off after settling into these major flood zones. Abandoned open areas such as the Queen's Wharf were underutilised in comparison to the pathway along the red fence, where runners and cyclists were spotted frequently, an opportunity to take into consideration for design exploration. I began design exploration with the integration of public and social use on ports that saw an undulating promenade dissect the working ports, furthermore implementing a cruise terminal on one of the existing berths. My second test looked at pushing the ports into the harbour and creating a vibrant edge that consisted of mixed-use development and public recreational use. I introduced a city rail link on Quay Street and a new station for locals to access the Victor Arena precinct as well. However, I quickly learned there were negative consequences of these design moves and had to learn the technicalities of port functions and logistics, as well as look at Auckland's waterfront as a whole before considering such bold design moves. I continued my extensive research. I looked into the design proposals from Waterfront Auckland and Auckland Council. I noticed there was significant development on the west end, and Auckland Council focused strictly on the future development of the central wharfs and creating public access to the water. However, no significant thought was given to the port's edge and creating public access there, merely because it is a restricted to public. I continued my extensive research and looked into some GIS data on a meso and a micro scale of Auckland's waterfront. A 2-meter sea level rise is projected by the end of 21st century, inundating the lower lying plains of the coastal city. Furthermore, the catchment that feeds into the ports of Auckland is 290 hectares, of which 168 hectares is impervious and 122 is permeable. A large chunk of that permeable surface is deducted by Auckland Domain. However, substantial runoff still flows from the adjacent domain and concentrates at this floodplain, which once used to be a low ridge. In doing that, I explored some reed strategies of soft. Apologies for that. I explored the reed strategies of soft and hard engineering in order to address the projected sea level rise on the waterfront and storm water flooding in the city centre precinct. I believe a mix of soft and hard strategies can be applied on Auckland's waterfront in conjunction with feasible design strategies to achieve optimum physical resiliency. The empirical research followed by design exploration led me to my design proposal, which can effectively be observed as a diagram and a model. This diagram demonstrates key design interventions driven by logical design strategies to deal with the critical issues within the context of the site in 2 sections. The proposal aims to achieve the following design objectives: enhancing port city connectivity and livability on the coastal edge, developing social spaces with economic and ecological benefits, increasing physical resiliency and biodiversity on the waterfront edge, as well as preventing flood zones by treating stormwater runoff at its source. These basic diagrams identify the logic of rationalizing my design. The first diagram illustrates the current situation of intense stormwater flow from one direction and the projected sea level rise from the other. The second diagram shows the separation of the critical areas where flood pressure is released. However, it is still under threat. And the third diagram demonstrates applying design mitigation strategies to address the critical issues within the site-specific context. This brings me to the more detailed aspects of my proposal. I believe the primary barrier preventing public from accessing the waterfronts is Quay Street and the ports of Auckland. There have been proposals for developing public space along Quay Street and Central Wharfs, complemented by the potential extension of the tram line from Wynyard Quarter onto Quay Street However, no advancements have been made on that front. So I've decided to make Quay Street a shared space with a tram extension to the end of Ports of Auckland, which would be the first step to giving public greater access to the water's edge. These are some illustrations of the design interventions that are about to follow. Following that, the removal of Marsden Wharf and retaining Captain Cook's Wharf, which are currently used for storing vehicles, transforms Captain Cook Wharf into a secondary cruise terminal. This move will accommodate and encourage greater cruise trips to Auckland, therefore generating significant revenue. Despite of having an open cruise terminal facility, I have considered health and safety measures of biosecurity and other precautions. While the tourists undergo an invisible customs check, they are welcomed into this vibrant waterfront edge that signifies Auckland's identity. The implementation of a waterfront wetland park is complemented by artificial islands and constructed wetlands, which are there to absorb high wave energy and reduce flood risks to adjacent development, as well as create a social space. Integrating a resilient dike system, which is very successful in the Netherlands and serves the purpose of controlling water flow within canals and mitigating high storm surges, as you can see from the details over here. By creating a canal between the city and the port, forms a new edge space that enhances boating and recreational use, while maintaining security at the ports. Furthermore, enhancing and developing an entertainment and retail interface on a waterfront edge will create a vibrant atmosphere and attract people to the waterfront. A substitute for removing Quay Street is a proposed new highway from Tamaki Drive to Beach Road linking onto Customs. This highway will meander over the railway lines and squeeze between the existing Grand Station and the residential apartments. This proposed highway will also be used as a new arterial road for commuters using during peak flow traffic. Now, studies from Auckland Council show the development underway on waterfront won't deliver city's initiatives and therefore won't be able to meet the city's economic goals. In order to achieve high rankings in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, also known as the OECD, the city would have to double the regional economy and be able to sustain it for decades. Therefore, I've decided to implement a mixed-use development which consists of commercial, retail, entertainment, institutional, and business facilities on the waterfront edge. Auckland Unitary Plan has catered for 80,000 dwellings, when projections suggest we need 400,000. Auckland's density has changed by 33% from 2001 to 2013 and is relying heavily on intensification methods, whereas the city needs to grow further up. So what I'm suggesting is to develop a residential at prime waterfront estate to accommodate for future living and accommodate Auckland's projected growth. These zones will contribute significantly towards the economy and enhance the future livability on the waterfront. The proposed development offers walking distance to existing and new mixed-use development through vibrant laneways to enhance social cohesion. Events and active play spaces are integrated in the design, such as waterfront plaza and terraces along the edge. A boat ramp and passive recreational use area established closer to the residential development. Furthermore, introducing water transport to strengthen city port links at the edge and encourage people to use public transport. The proposed highway also has an off-ramp onto the Strand that connects with the proposed shared space zone. Commuters using the Strand and Stanley Street can, however, only access Tamaki Drive using this proposed highway. This zone will also encapsulate active recreation, where people can experience the journey of walking through wetlands and having access to waterfront views from an elevated boardwalk. The Wave Deck project in Toronto is a successful example of public use and connections to waterfront precincts. Standing on the peak wavelength of the boardwalk will give spectacular views to the Sky Tower and the surrounding waterfront. At the end of the canal is a proposed dike system to control the water flow within and protect the coastal edge from flooding. This treatment zone is focused on dealing with a 100-year flood event, which I talked about earlier, and releases runoff pressure from the proposed waterfront edge. By implementing soft engineering strategies, they will be more resilient and assist in removal of high levels of contaminants through the natural uptake of vegetation. The design interventions were integrated based on areas for potential development and their topography. The concept of implementing a stream on an arterial road flows from the Cheonggyecheong River, which is located in South Korea. The design within the stream is routing the existing highway structure and daylighting a stream within the CBD. The stream's purpose is to filter contaminants before being discharged into the harbour. Traffic, however, still flows along each side of the stream, while public and tourists congregate in the centre. I've implemented a similar concept onto the Strand on a much smaller scale, which involves daylighting a portion of the road through the middle that captures stormwater runoff and treats pollutants. The stream is approximately 5 meters wide and runs 774 meters long. Therefore, the road layout is slightly modified, resulting only a single lane for commuters driving south, as you can see from this cross-section. To further aid flood prevention, efficient soft strategies were used by implementing a couple of wetland parks, a vegetative filter strip adjacent to the residential apartments, and a dry detention pond. These devices would assist in treating runoff, prevent flood risks, and increase permeability in industrial zone while creating a social environment. Now, in case the stream overflows in high storm events, there are overflow pipes, which are identified through the orange dashed lines, that lead into the wetland parks and a dry detention pond. Locals currently residing within the industrial zone are currently disconnected to the prime waterfront land. So a proposed elevated railway crossing would connect them directly to the Vector Arena precinct. Now, this proposed master plan addresses the outlined design objectives through innovative design strategies, some of which that can be identified are enhancing biodiversity and physical resiliency on the water's edge, stimulating economy through mixed-use development, and improving long-term city-port links. Some strengths of the design are creating a vibrant waterfront edge through multi-purpose use, improving physical resiliency, retaining the ports of Auckland, and creating a waterfront edge, stimulating the Auckland's economy, and having your design proposal fit within Auckland's waterfront's future development plans. Whereas there are some weaknesses by creating the waterfront edge that would reduce port's current footprint, and they would need more storage space for their containers. This would lead to further dredging into the harbour, creating negative ecological effects possibly, and port expansion. The proposed highway may block potential views to existing residential and commercial development. They may increase noise pollution, and they may cause interference with existing railway tracks. So what I'm proposing is this big dramatic move. In doing that, we need to address cities' critical issues, and this project is a basic response to that. And we can't do this with small-scale design interventions. And so us landscape architects and urban designers need to think of these as visioning projects for future generations. Thank you.
Kia ora. Steve, thank you for, very informative. The research I could follow your ideas, and I found it appropriate for me, the kind of the levels of supporting the idea led us along on I think a fairly invigorating journey. I was always wanting a bit more, so I really found that interesting. Of course, this is one of the most contentious pieces of land there is in Tamaki Makaurau, so you were always going to have your work cut out for you. But again, I was really interested in your ideas and seeing the depth of thinking behind that, really invigorating. So I just want to acknowledge that. I found the graphics really quite interesting too. I'm not sure where it's appropriate to throw in some suggested thought, but I would like to say I'd like to see a bit more clarity around your ideas and just simplify them. Almost in my head I was trying to think of them like threads.
Okay.
You're talking about these interventions, it's so political, we're all compressed and we're trying to find release in these spaces. And somehow in there, I think it's just simplifying that in a diagrammatic form. This is sort of how I was trying to picture your words, lots of words, but seeing that in some sort of diagrammatic form, almost like threads, if you will, of your ideas sewing through here.
Yeah.
One might be, I did a little diagram in the back here. You got the water's edge, sort of that foreshore. Then you come up onto the public fringe. Then there's sort of that the roading, the tram things you were talking about. Then you're into sort of start to hit the commercial apartment sort of hubs. I sort of just think to sort of maybe the words are great, but with that just sort of more of a simplistic diagram really, because I'm very visual. To aid what your key ideas and how they sew through.
Definitely,
your sketches in that were great, but they were sort of really big back objective, which is important. But I kind of wanted to go in and kind of peel through your big objective research and drill down to, okay, where are these threads actually going through? So obviously you're demonstrating some of that through there, but still I think something simple that even in colour to tell me how you're dealing with those interventions. Very interesting.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thinking from that, for me also was a little bit difficult to understand when you were talking about the highway. Where exactly it is? Can you show on the...
This is the proposed highway.
That's the proposed
highway. Okay.
Exactly. Because it was a little bit difficult with the sections to have the proportion exactly where it was in relation to the port. Where it was there. And then actually with the key road, the main street that goes through the Key Street.
Key Street.
Key Street. So are you...
So that's
transforming just in a pedestrian.
It's going to be not strictly pedestrian. It's a shared space zone, so cars can use it, buses can use it, but it's mainly for pedestrians and gaining access to the waterfront edge.
Sure, exactly. So the strategy it's okay, exactly that, to try to permeate that barrier that we have now there. It's almost impossible not to cross to the other side. I don't know if the idea of the highway, I think it's kind of, even though that moves back to the meandering around, it's still kind of a big structure to construct and to be there, and maybe in 50 years it's going to be the debate that maybe they should implode. They just imploded one in Rio now, that was quite old and it was going through the whole Porto Maravilha, in the coast. And it's still that you had a lot of permeability under that construction bridge, let's say. Was also very kind of noisy and very dirty and very present there. So they just create a tunnel under that road.
Another $2 billion tunnel, perfect. Another $2 billion tunnel, like the one on the Unitec.
Yeah, but they say you were talking about 100, a vision of 100 years, no? So sometimes it's that. You have to put the money well, it's going to be underground, but it's going to be important for the city. So I would say maybe an aerial perspective, maybe a kind of a digital model of the area, I think would be important, that maybe you could kind of zoom and show
That'll
some
be
of
my
those
next step.
things.
Yeah, that's available through Auckland City Engine. I'm using it in some of my competition work. Have you seen it?
No.
It's Auckland City hold the key, and I've got one of two guys in the nation that are allowed to use it, and it's all modelled. So if you beg, borrow, steal, that whole bottom, or the whole of the central CBD is modelled to a 98% level of accuracy. So it's very, very good.
Great.
If I may, sorry,
No,
jump in. I just have to acknowledge Ngāti Whātua here. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about came about through the colonials first stepping off their ships as they procured, shall we say, Tamaki Makaurau. And Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei fed them. And literally what you're talking about is the formation of the formacy of Tamaki Makaurau here. So these things are there for reasons. I think those reasons, it's important that we acknowledge as we step forward the likes of Mana Whenua, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, who fed them, brought their waka along, and so that informed where these port locations are, the ferry building is, and I think you've got to really acknowledge that in this body. It's just too deep, its history, to bring this without acknowledging that. It's almost smacks a little bit, here comes another foreigner bringing their views to our nation. Not that you are, but let's not fall into that. So, and with that, I just took a note here. The Tiaranga principles are available to you from Auckland City. Particularly for this, you really should be using them. So they talk about manaakitanga, whanaungatanga, kaitiakitanga. There's notions, so kaitiaki is like a guardian, if you like, of that foreshore. And I think that would greatly enrich and deepen where you're stepping from. What we don't need is more foreign. I'm not against foreign things that are good. It's just, let's acknowledge the good that we have too, and not be afraid to embrace that. So just I'll put that in the notes for you.
Great.
Kia ora.
Thank you. It was good, and I like that you've also gone through your stats as well, and you've worked things out, and you seem very systematic in that sense. So I also had written down here cultural considerations. I agree with Stephen. It's something in Auckland Council now that it's in all of our projects. We're working with iwi on everything, and we're really starting to get into the principles. So that's probably a good.
They are.
Yeah, and they're neat.
They're not just saying it; they are doing it.
It's neat, and it's a checklist for yourself as well. You go through and you've done this, you've done this. It's fantastic. So I'd recommend maybe that is like another layer to you to what you've got here. I was concerned a little bit about north-south connections. Like it still feels very linear this way. The domain. How does the domain connect through? Obviously the highway. At first I was like highway, but then you also talked obviously about raising the highway and having connections. But those types of spaces also can get a bit dingy, and if they're not, if design considerations haven't been taken for underneath a highway like that, they can sort of be not so nice spaces to be in. So that was just one consideration.
Talk about P2.
Sorry? Trina?
Trina scheme.
Oh, Trina scheme? Sorry? Which?
There is a Trina to show you.
I don't remember that one. Sorry. I wasn't in her year. But yeah, that was. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the way you took us through the journey. And in terms of graphics, I love the plan. It's very rich. Did you at all consider Hobson Bay as a water body as well? Just
I did at one stage, I did at one stage,
Okay, cool. I also like that you've got the strengths and your weaknesses, and you're able to look at your design objectively and see that there are some things maybe you weren't totally happy with, and it's hard to get that happy medium there. Graphically, I could follow everything. It was neat, and I like that you also had where we were in the process as well at the very top left-hand corner. I find that sort of thing really helpful when you're you know,
Yeah.
understand someone's thought process. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So, in terms of the research, just remind me one more time, the research question is?
To create a strategic integration of urban and port-related activities to enhance future livability on waterfronts.
And so can you quickly, could you point to what aspects of that design address that question?
So, the waterfront edge is urban activities.
Sorry, say again, the waterfront edge.
This new edge that is formed, creating these new public spaces, social spaces,
So, in what way is it urban?
where people's recreation at the waterfront is urban.
But we walk through a park,
Yeah.
it's not urban.
Why would it not be urban?
Sorry,
Why is it not urban?
a park,
Yeah.
like a park, you know.
It's
It's
urban. There's different ways of defining urban, I can say.
Yeah. So
It's basically the culmination of ecological, economic, and societal effects within a space. Probably create an urban environment strategically. So, having port-related activities and urban, which is pretty much this infrastructure, the shared space zone, social spaces. That's urban, that's port. So it's pretty much creating this balance and this medium between the two in order to enhance that future livability on our waterfronts. That's basically,
In a nutshell, yeah.
yeah.
And so, is it still going to be a big security gate, a security fence? Like
There will be a security fence along, but there's also a bank that sort of restrains, a vegetated bank that will restrain public from accessing the ports.
So can we walk on the port side?
Can we walk on the port side currently? No, we can't walk on the port
So
side.
in
no.
that green...
There is currently a walkway along
yeah,
this
yeah,
edge
yeah.
where people can access, but nothing in particular. No.
So you've shown a green bank.
A green bank, yeah.
Could you walk on that?
You could walk on that, but it's going to be densely vegetated. But then people would kind of have to like swim across or canoe across in order to get.
Would it be a good thing to walk on that side?
Currently, Port of Genoa, they've got something like that. There's a ports right there, and they've got a pathway right next to it, and it's got a massive fence, red gate separating the two, and it's fully functional. So I don't see why not. It would be a
If I
problem.
may just add to that, when you sent me his topic, I did some reading. Surde, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, the father of urbanisation in Barcelona, he used the word exemple, E-I-X-A-M-P-L-E, which means expansion, from which we derive urbanisation, which he also fathered that word in that predicament in Barcelona, where they were living over the top of each other with their commercial vibrancy, with their residencies. And when I heard that, I went and had a look at this in relation to this, and not in great depth, but I just felt it was appropriate because that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You're dealing with this contention. And I'm kind of liking that you're sort of pulling, you're pulling away from convention and coming at it. I don't know if you've gone far enough personally.
Okay.
I mean, Surde ended up inventing urbanisation, but he was criticised. He cut these big long roads. First guy to do roads. I mean, I'm not a planner, I'm a landscape person, I'm an architect, but I felt, he's getting all this criticism for putting a road in.
Yeah.
Okay, you put a road in. But where is it? Where's this? Break this thing apart in some ways, I think, and come at it really come at it. Surde.
Okay.
So, I'll just keep being bad cop.
I was trying to be bad cop.
Yeah, these guys are too good.
Damn it.
Yeah. Give you a chance. So the last trip we had, wasn't there quite a lot of criticism about the white
residential development.
Didn't they
Yeah.
say you should get rid of it, you should make
Yeah,
it?
but there wasn't really justification as to why and get rid of it. That's why I personally felt. Because at this stage, we are needing more housing, and people want to live at the waterfront edge. And currently, Wynyard Quarter, like I mentioned with some of my stats, that we are heavily relying on densification. Housing that is going to be constructed at Wynyard Quarter is not going to be enough to accommodate the future growth, and people want to live at the waterfront. So it's pretty much using Wynyard Quarter as an example and kind of applying it on this waterfront edge and sort of creating that public edge condition between the Auckland City and the ports.
And so that those apartments will be sort of fronting onto the shared space and then onto this
Yeah,
vegetation
yeah,
and thing.
yeah. Yeah.
So essentially an urban intensification
Yeah.
of this edge here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Wow. But Kiwis like going here. I like going there. I like to go there to celebrate
Yeah.
when we win things and do things.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you were to double the density, whew, it's really hard. You can't even skateboard down there anymore. Okay.
And I guess another question we had from last time was, the pollution. Like there's obviously, as Esther said, it's all connected up to the domain and that whole kind of catchment. And there's obviously stormwater pipes coming out
Mhm.
from that catchment into this area, and then there's all the stormwater from ports. So what was your kind of solution to?
Well, therefore, I've got these soft strategies, mitigation strategies that treat the pollutants at this edge.
And is that big enough?
Yeah, I mean, it's about 80 meters, 70 to 80 meters. The ports have been extended out. And so that gives this depth about 10 to 15 meters of channel. And the lowest point on the channel is 7 meters.
So is that all going to be wetland remediation ponds?
Parts of it, yeah. So this is a major wetland waterfront part.
Yeah.
And there's going to be bits of it over here through this canal.
Yeah.
And this area is going to be a wetland part as well.
So the canal's going to be salt water or?
Canal.
Yeah, it will be salt water.
To be so
Yeah.
nice.
It will be salt water, yeah. So yeah, there are these dike systems. So when people come in to any sailing or any canoeing and whatnot, these dike systems will lower down. So the water will kind of wash off any sort of contaminants or any pollutants or whatever. So that would give access to people using this canal, and the dike system will go back up, and they would pretty much control the water flow within that canal. So it's pretty much kind of what I showed in my cross sections.
So how does a wetland, like a wetland works, with, I know it's kind of telling you how to suck eggs, but a wetland works with plants.
Yeah.
Yep. And so these plants, so you found some plants that are resistant
Yeah,
to
yes,
salt water?
yeah, native. I just hadn't put it on the slides over here, but yeah, I have.
It's more of an estuarine environment
Yeah, it's right.
than wetland. I guess maybe just terminology. You just have to make sure
Salt
that you.
marsh.
Yeah, salt marsh.
So it's a salt marsh.
Mm.
And is it okay, like, do I really want to kind of, it's like in Auckland, it's a big storm, and that first flush, stormwater,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see it off Mission Bay or something, just the whole thing's been around, do I really want to be paddling through that?
That's something I've got to look into further
Put a
to
sign
kind of
up saying,
remediate it.
Don't go, wait till it all sinks down.
But where is your stormwater being collected? Is it going straight out to sea or is it not?
It is going straight out to sea, but some of it is being collected in these wetland detention areas.
Okay.
I thought it's being treated in wetlands, you said.
Yeah, they are being treated in wetlands.
Sorry if I got... These are wetlands here, are they?
Yeah, the constructed wetlands, yeah.
That's where it's being treated.
Yeah, that's what, so, because the stormwater pipes, some of them go this way, some of them go this way, right?
Yeah.
So the majority of them being treated over here, and some of them get discharged out there.
I think some people might be losing track right now because sometime in your slides, 3 or 4 slides in, you brought in the idea of, the canals and examples of, and you just talked about it as soft versus hard infrastructure. and you kind of just slip past the whole canal process.
Yeah.
I think what Matthew's pointing to there, when you're talking about wetlands, is part of the canal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and those two, they're distinctly different things, canal and wetlands.
Yeah.
So I think you just need to be more precise about where all those things are happening.
I mean, there's a canal, if you're establishing this kind of saltwater channel,
Yeah.
which is used for recreation and,
Yeah.
and planting and so forth, you know, I get that.
Yeah.
I just think if it's also a wetland, that's fine, but it just needs to be.
It's not also a wetland.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it could become.
And then why bother?
Not a-
Just do an estuary. That's what Kiwis want.
Yeah,
That's the Kiwi
yeah.
experience. A mangawhai, you know, this protected inlet for multi-craft, multi-recreational use rather than some little kind of tight little creek. I can get that, you know, in Henderson.
Be able to restore native salt meadows, that sort of stuff. That would,
Yeah, that's a road that kind of that thing that he's talking about.
Okay.
That other stroke against the grain, and your subtle attempt to separate the container to me, just rip some more of the container space out. They can build out a little bit more or something if you were really going to go for it.
Yeah.
That's that's that exemplaire,
Yeah.
as he's calling.
So the port.
It's not an exemplaire.
Sorry. In terms of the port function, they can still get the containers on their trains and get them taken out to.
Yeah.
Where does that happen?
Unfortunately, that can't be seen quite clearly over here. Probably if you come closer, but it comes this way and goes underneath this highway. There's currently a clearance at this stage, so I've left it as it is. So it comes around underneath and continues on this existing.
so does it go under the water?
Yeah, over the water or under.
Over the wall.
Oh, good.
over there.
There's
Okay.
a bridge there.
Yeah, there's a bridge there. It's just I haven't detailed it.
Okay.
Just as you come up to the exams, people are going to be going.
Yeah.
Because this is incredibly comprehensive.
Yeah.
You know, but people are just going to be going, you
Where
know,
is this?
exactly how does this thing work? You know, so
Yeah.
give you those answers.
What's the Māori word for that?
For
What you're putting up? Where's your te reo? You got some Māori words too. I think they would help enhance this
okay.
greatly.
All right.
Because the original bay was back,
We'll add to
obviously, in here. Wasn't it? The bay here. It was commercial way, wasn't it? Oh, no, it wasn't. I can't remember the bay. It was some back in here.
It's some kind of. This was the edge.
Yeah.
The original
Yeah,
on the strand.
Shoreline.
Yeah.
But I would say also to make more easy for you in your final presentation, to not mix too much of this kind of information, because this is our project, this is not, I'm not talking about the document itself,
Yeah.
but I say about the visual presentation,
Yeah.
because then it's kind of, it's too complicated. See what's your proposal, what's an example, and I have to kind of, and I'm trying to listen what you are saying, so it's a lot of things to process. So I think if you have this model that you are working now, this 3D model, that you can show, and then on the model, you indicate where the cut is, and you have the arrows on the plan, but only your proposal, and then you zoom in, kind of, you give a little bit of more time and more, and dilute a little bit, or make a little bit more easy, the information to convey to us.
Okay.
That I think will help you a lot, because then if people understand, people engage. Otherwise, they kind of, I don't know. It's kind of,
Yeah, put the words in the drawing,
and,
in the
yeah,
illustration.
and detach it. So put the examples in another place, in your project, and go a little bit more kind of, because when you are talking here, there, this is this one here, the one that goes. So, what do you have? Is a tram?
Yes, the tram.
Tram, and then 2 lines of cars driving, or is a parking also? It's parking and
No, it's just driving.
just driving, and then another 2 cars driving here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if it's kind of, it's not too much traffic there.
Yeah, you were talking about a shared space, and,
Yeah.
and that diagram looks like you've got a major road traveling down the center of that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe as I said, so
Okay.
then you would be really helpful then to go to the perspective of that to explain it to us. So
Yeah,
rather
yes.
than the perspective of
Absolutely.
perspective of your thing, you know.
Yeah.
And you're the boss, you know, you know the scheme really well. You just need to help out.
And some different scales as well. I mean, this scale, I think, yes, it gives us the overall master plan idea, but I think some of the kind of points of confusion coming out of here, like when you know, Matthew brought up the buildings, and all of a sudden, whoa, densification, what do you mean? You know, and there's definitely going to be some, you know, comments like that. So get into that scale. What are the spaces between those buildings? How tall are those buildings? How much space
Exactly.
is there? Are those courtyards, or is that just, you know, line after line of apartment building, and millions of people that just pour out into the street, and where do they go? So that kind of scale, broken up down in that little area especially, is going to be important. And you've got some of that sort of in here, but you're not using it to your advantage to kind of explain your plan.
Okay.
Okay, let's look at the wrap up. Well, that's great.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, awesome.